Welcome everyone to the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education. And I'm Catherine Seymour, chairing the meeting, and I represent Berwick North, Southern Country. I think it might be useful actually to go around the room, seeing as it's my first meeting here, just to introduce everyone, if that's all right. So I'll start with you, David.
I'm Dave Cookson. I'm Head of School Improvement and Officer responsible for SACRE.
I'm Nick Morgan. I'm the County Council for Home and leader of the Green Party.
I'm Joyce Miller. I'm the British representative. I live in Berwick Country.
Oh, good.
I'm Councillor Les Foreman. I'm County Councillor for Hollywood Ward.
I'm Claire Curtis, teacher at Mulberry Primary School. I'm Claire Dixon. I'm a co-opted member and I teach at Slavey First School. I'm Jean Simpson and I'm representing the Free Church.
Sorry, Nicholas, I represent the union. Any representative?
Reverend Ted Marley, representing the United Reformed Church and the Methodist Church within Senya.
I'm Diana Roundabell, representing the Jewish community.
And I'm like a little off the back right. Okay, good. All right, so we'll start with the agenda.
I want to point out that I didn't think I call it.
Pardon?
I didn't think I call it.
Are we not for it?
Is General Fund Committee be here?
Yes. This committee meeting about is 2 seconds. Trying to get them.
Don't this from the Church of England?
We haven't got the Church of England.
How many
Because
members?
part line could represent.
How many members of?
There's 19. So quorum is, how many?
Quorum is different. The quorum is one member from each committee.
So well, what's the number? What's that?
So, no, Paul not yet. Paul does speak not yet, and Chris is police apology again somewhere.
So we've got quorum.
Not quorum. We can hold the meeting, but we can't do any decisions.
Okay, so we just note.
Yeah, I mean, the decisions would be electing the vice chair, I think, would be vast majority of the points are discussion points or planning September. So I think it's certainly worthwhile continuing. We have everybody happy with that? Yeah. Thank you.
Happy with that, good. Okay, so item 2, or item 1 is the membership. You're not for it, but very much.
I do actually have an update regarding membership. So I have been in contact with we've got Jean Simpson from the Baptist Church, who should be attending.
Oh, yeah.
And we've also got, if I get it wrong, Pandit Diaz, representing Hinduism. He was put his apologies in, but will join in the committee.
All right, okay, so so the terms of reference, you've all got your minutes, your agenda here, so so it's just to advise the authority upon such matters connected with religious worship in county schools and the religious education to be given in accordance with an agreed syllabus as the authority may refer to the council or as the council sees fit. And item 2 is the appointment of a chair. To note the appointment of myself, Councillor Catherine Seymour, as chair of the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education for the ensuing year of 2023 to 24 council years appointed by council on the 17th of May 2023. I suppose we could just note that, but we'll just note that.
Yeah,
Everyone. Okay. And then the election, item 3, the election of the vice chair. I don't think we can do that, can we?
We can go through the process, but it can be ratified at the meeting in September.
All right, is everyone happy that, do we have a nomination for the vice chair?
Yes, I propose Diana Vanderbilt.
Pardon?
I propose Diana Vanderbilt.
All right, do we have a seconded?
I second Deanna Vanderbilt.
Second that. Is that, agreed or noted? That, raise hands? Everyone happy with that?
Happy.
Okay, good. Well,
Thank you.
congratulations.
It's all right. I mean, I have been vice chair over the past several years.
Oh,
So
happy.
thank you very much indeed for having confidence in me again.
Okay.
Can't do that.
Good. Then item 4, introductions and apologies for absence. Well, we've done the introductions already. And apologies for absence.
Yes, I've got apologies from Ross Hunt, Chris Hudson, Leon Gav, and Kazia.
And then item 5 is the minutes. So going to the minutes, which is pages.
Well, we are for it.
Oh, we for it now. Hello. Oh. Good afternoon. We've just done we've started, we've done the introductions and we're now for it, so that's good. I'm Catherine Seymour and I'm chairing the meeting. And we've just elected the vice chair. Probably.
Hi there.
You don't know me. Oh, you probably know everyone in the room apart from me. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just up to item 5 minutes. And I'll just go through page one by one. So page 1, page 2. Everyone happy with that? I'll just go through, and if you just speak up if there's an issue. Page 3. Page 4.
There is one point under number 24. The AGM took place in May, not in March.
Took place in May.
Yeah, it says March. But May, just for accuracy.
For May.
And at the top of page 5, if I may, it was the city of Leicester. So there was an accuracy there.
The city of,
5, first line. So
it should be Leicester.
it should be Leicester.
Leicester. Okay. All right. And then at the top of that page too, there's resolved that the self-evaluation tool and draft REC handbook would be added to the next agenda, which it is. And then I note every item on 26 item 2, every SACRE meeting should include a time of discussion between members. It will be planned, led, and with modelled good practice in discussion. Would we be allowed for that?
We have got a good practice discussion today, yes.
Okay. And then, not sure why that's put on there then, but anyway, and then. Then that's page 6. Page 7.
Item 12. I can't remember whether I have sent Dave any information about Holocaust Memorial Day 2024.
Not as yet. but the planning hasn't begun at the council, so that can still be done and still
Right,
incorporated.
it was left very late.
Yeah.
Last year, particularly trying to involve, schools. I know we did have young people there. I mean, I wasn't there, but I know we did have young people. And I just think it's important that we continue, you know, to be involved and to
Yeah.
encourage schools.
Well, we'll start that preparation from September.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Okay, and then there's the item 14. I see the chair of SACRE and consultant should have an annual meeting with the director of children's services. So that's to be set up.
Yes.
Has that been done?
It hasn't happened this year, but it can do at such a time. We think it's going to be best placed. We did talk about March 2023. The slight difficulty we have is getting the exam results because we don't collect school by school data for RE as we used to. So we are looking at what we can collect from schools. But there's no reason why a meeting, even without that data, can't take place between now and the end of the academic year.
Okay. Good. And then there's item 16. SACRE should continue to pursue the question of its status in relation to the local authority through to further discussion with NASACRE. I'm not really sure what that is.
It's national SACRE.
And other national bodies. So Jay Miller would oversee this action.
Yes, I think
Joyce.
that can come under the action plan if you wish, or I can talk about it now, whichever you prefer.
What do you think? Under the action plan?
Shall we do it now?
Okay, let's do it now. What I said I would do is to talk to officers in the National Association of SACREs. And this came as a result of some work that a group of us did about how to make this SACRE more efficient or effective or energetic to promote and support teachers in RE. There are questions about SACRE and its status in relation to the local authority, and that's now part of our action plan. And SACRE is an anomalous body in the sense that it is set up by law. It's organised by law. It is independent of the council, but it has to be supported by the council. And so the relationship between the council and the SACRE is extremely important. And there are some issues where there are complexities or differences of understanding, for example. So on the action plan that we came up with last year, it was agreed that under point 15, I would have some conversations, and we won't be surprised to learn that nationally what local authorities relate to their SACREs varies enormously, and they're organised in very different ways, not structured in different ways, but managed and supported in different ways. And so the National Association has sent out some advice, but it doesn't really deal with some of the questions that we have. So I have had conversations and gathered really that it is something to be determined to have conversations about at local level. And my first thought was that we should come up with a series of questions of clarification about how the authority interprets its relationship with SACRE, and to send questions to the council's legal department in order for that to be clarified. It then seemed to me that that could become a very, very long process indeed. Framing the questions, how the questions are interpreted. And so what I would like to suggest is that we should set up a small working group of SACRE members to look at our existing constitution, to make sure that we're following our own constitution, to make sure the constitution is fit for purpose. And as the constitution requests, SACRE has a duty to keep on checking its own constitution and to come up with recommended changes. So I think that if a little group of us were to do that, I would do it on my own if necessary, but it would be much better if other people were involved to look at the constitution, to discuss what we might do to make SACRE more efficient, more energetic, and working as best as it possibly can. Bring those recommendations back to SACRE if there are any changes we would recommend. And then such document would go to legal for checking before they became our constitution. So, as with the working group that we had before, I'd be very willing to chair that and do all of the background work and papers and summaries of discussions on that, and bring a report back to the next SACRE if colleagues feel that that would be an appropriate way forward. So that is my suggestion. Did that sound clear enough?
Well, I like the sound of that very much. I haven't had sight of the constitution. Do you know where it is?
Yeah, I'll send you a copy.
Okay, good. And yeah, how do members feel about that? Is there any other
I
comments?
think it's a good way forward, that's what we suggested.
Would you like to help out, Ted? Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Well, I think it's useful to have a number in the group. Any volunteers?
Yeah.
So,
I'm happy to work.
Yes, but I mean, we were part of the original
Well,
group.
the three of us worked, well, from my perspective, very happily and very well on the last piece of work that we did together. And I'd be delighted to work with Ted and Diana on this one.
Presumably that there will be Zoom meetings.
Zoom meetings, definitely.
mhm.
They would.
I think a classic example is the fact that Chris Hudson can't be here because he's not particularly well. He would be happy to attend virtually, but according to constitution, he's not allowed to.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's one of
It
those
is, exactly.
examples where we could do things differently for the benefit of SACRE, but we're not allowed to because of the way that we.
So it's looking at those sorts of anomalies. There are a number of them, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, difficult just to say what they all are, but I think in conversation we can come up with them. And even if members don't want to be on this little working group, I'd be delighted if you emailed me to say, what about this, what about that? So
Yeah.
we could have it more open than just the three of us working on it together.
I think we had a number of our last meetings, the last working group on online. You know, we didn't attend a meeting physically. We had a lot of our discussions online, which was quite helpful. and
Yeah,
useful.
it's a very good way of working, I believe.
Well, perhaps Dave could set something up to work out something on this.
Absolutely.
I'd be happy to attend if I can, just to see.
Thank you.
Did you say that it couldn't be hybrid, the
We're
meeting
not allowed to be hybrid, are we?
at all?
No, it's the same as at the council meeting. It was the same as the council meeting.
Okay,
The members can't be hybrid.
But I think that's council practice, not our constitution.
but not the group, that could be hybrid.
Oh, yes.
Oh, the group could be
Could
hybrid.
be hybrid.
Yeah, in any way you wish, yes.
Or would you prefer it anyway? Yeah.
I prefer an online meeting. We live very far apart, so online meetings are much more efficient. Can I make two further points? One is that I think it would be really useful if an up-to-date version of the constitution is sent to everybody. I'm not sure that the copy I've got is the most recent,
Okay.
so it would be very important to be working on the most recent.
What date do you have?
Well, it's not dated, I don't think.
Okay.
So, I think that's also three members should have a
Yes.
copy of the constitution. I don't know if it's on the website actually, whether, is it?
It won't, I don't know if it's on council website, it's not on the SACRE pages on the Northumberland Education. website. But I'll send one to Rebecca, she can send it on to you.
Okay, thank you.
And my second point is that if I were to be reporting back on this, I'm already committed for November and I can't make the next meeting. So that's just a point to note now that I wouldn't be able to do that.
I'm sure one of your colleagues can.
I hope so. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Can I ask a couple of questions based on things I've read in the minutes?
okay. Are we up to page, is it up to page 7 yet,
I'm
or?
going to backtrack that.
You can go back to our page.
It's not about the accuracies, which is why I can chip in at the time. but I was just wondering, it says on page 6 that there was going to be an event after Easter to bring the new syllabus back into focus.
Yes.
Just wondering if that went ahead.
There has been the first of 2 days where staff in schools were invited to attend County Hall with CAS and other staff in schools to spend their time talking about and planning and developing the syllabus. So we've had the first 2 of those. That was a week before last. We've got the next one next week. So staff were invited for either the morning or the afternoon, 2 different days across a period of time to give them a bit more flexibility and benefit from CAS's knowledge and, as importantly, the knowledge of other people, other RE teachers across the county. So yes, one has taken place, the other one is planned, and I think there are about 14 something for the one next one.
Great.
Can I just chip in there and say,
Yes,
it was
sorry.
really, really useful,
Good.
and I really enjoyed the morning with class. Thank you.
And what was the other?
Could I ask about on page 2, it reminds us that Dave, you've been looking to update workforce data.
Yes. I have looked into workforce data. The issue we will have is its accuracy and how much we trust it. So what I was going to suggest is that we go back and do it again in September when everybody has moved around to their new posts. Because if doing it between Christmas and the summer tends to be a little more inaccurate. So if we do it in September when everybody's in their new post, then we'll have something that's a bit more accurate to talk about in November.
Yeah. And that was agreed at the last
Yeah.
meeting anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think you might have already mentioned it, but could I just check? Did you say that you're having trouble getting your hands on exam results, but are still worth it?
We don't collect subject by subject results from schools. Academies don't have, we can't compel them to share their results with us. So we ask politely. Most schools will give us the data, but I can't guarantee that I will have the data from every school because. So if they don't want to share it, they don't. There's no compulsion for them to do it.
Right.
We tend to do pretty well, but I just can't guarantee that.
Brilliant. Thank
Do
you.
you have incomplete data?
Sorry. Yes, I have.
Just to follow up next point, could we have incomplete data rather than no data at all?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it is one of the few ways in which SACRE can fulfil its statutory duty to monitor standards in schools. We've only got workforce, exam results and Ofsted reports. Very few Ofsted reports mention RE, which brings us back to workforce data and exam results. So we're going to do our duty and we need access to whatever data we can find.
Would you be able to put the schools or that you have the data from what?
Yeah, well, we'll certainly collect it. Yeah, absolutely.
So
It's just ensuring that the incomplete data we have is as accurate as possible. If that makes sense, just to make sure that our actions from that are as useful as possible. Yeah, well, certainly, yeah.
So could we have that on the agenda for the next meeting next term?
Yes, we'll put that on the agenda. The next meeting, Rebecca.
So that'll be work. We can do workforce data, we can do exam results, and we can do Ofsted.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And was there another one?
Not for me, no, thank you.
Right, okay. Oh, there we go.
The other bit of data you could use is the science reports on voluntary controlled schools, which have to use the locally agreed syllabus. Or there's a whole section on RE implicit within the. They don't get a separate grade for RE, but it's within the text of the main report.
Yeah, we can do Ofsted and science. So if you've got Ofsted and science, Rebecca, then we can do it.
Okay. Right, thank you. So we're up to page. Page 5. And then page 6, and we're up to page 7.
Seven.
Okay. And then page 8.
I just go back to page 7, because I think it's important that it's noted that we didn't meet in February.
You didn't have a meeting in February, I know.
No,
The last one was in November.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you change that? Right. Page 8, so we're all right with the minutes, everyone? Happy with those? Good. So the next item on the agenda is disclosure of interest. Any disclosures of interest from anyone?
I think perhaps I'm not sure whether it's relevant or not, but we're going to talk about good practice in schools. And I was involved in the setting up the RE quality mark and the criteria we use for assessing what is good practice. So I just thought I should share that I chaired a monitoring group on the national REQM.
Is that
Relevant?
of interest?
It's of interest, I'm not sure if it's necessarily
Yeah,
going to be a discussion of interest.
all right, thank you. Item 7 is an update on contacts with schools and training provision to receive an update from Caroline Ware, part-time RE consultant.
Yeah, Kaz isn't here, but she has sent me her update, which I will deliver on her behalf. The reason why Kaz isn't here is that she's got a long-standing training event, which might come back to what you talked about earlier on. The fact that the way we operate now means we set meeting dates in April for the following financial year, whereas of course Kaz, working in schools, sets her diary from September on the academic year. So maybe that's another point that we could.
All right.
So, Kaz, since the last meeting, obviously this goes back to November. Kaz has completed the relevant sections on the annual report about the support she's provided to schools. She's going to send that to me. My plan is to write the annual report on the first 2 days of what is the school summer holiday. I don't get some holidays. So that will be done and ready for that. It will have been submitted by the time we get to November. The regional hubs kite mark information has gone out to SACRE representatives. It would be lovely if reps would consider doing the training.
Done it, Dave.
Paul has done it.
Kite mark.
You are kite mark.
And I was taking it to Kaz's school to teach her to share things with our about the kids.
Excellent. So you're kite marked.
I'm kite marked.
Deanna's kite marked. Is anybody else?
I'm kite marked.
Your kite marked is fantastic, Joyce. That's great news. So that really will help by the fact that we have a rubber stamp that says Paul, Deanna and Joyce are kite marked and good enough to go in schools. And, you know, schools are asking about that. So that's excellent. Thank you. In terms of school support, there's been endless queries about the syllabus, about resourcing, about what and how, and that's where Kaz's advice has been really, really useful. She is running a further understanding Christianity course later on this term. That's on top of, that's for those people who attended in the autumn term. And we have another one planned for autumn 23, so that will continue. There was a meeting with the new RE lead at Otterburn Primary School recently, which has gone very well. There's been another meeting with the RE lead at James Calvin Spence College, which has worked out very well. Other schools that I have directed Kaz to work with, Bellingham Primary, Corbridge Middle and SACRE First, haven't yet transpired, but they will, I hope, in the new academic year. In terms of Kaz's professional development, she attended the SACRE webinar on collective worship, which was very useful. An RE Today webinar on teaching Buddhism at Key Stage 3, and the Holocaust Education Trust webinar about teaching about the Holocaust. And one of the things that I've always suggested is that it's my responsibility to ensure that she is up to date, because of course she's out delivering that information to schools. But that offer is open to any SACRE members. If there's any professional development out there that you want to attend, then it is obviously in our best interests if we support and facilitate that for you. So do remember that the offer for professional development is available to you all. And you simply need to get in touch with me or with Rebecca, and we'll ensure that you can attend whatever it is that you would like to attend.
Sorry, Dave, can I just add something there? The Board of Deputies of the British Jews has set up meetings for Jewish SACRE members. What they're trying to do is to have Jewish members on every SACRE. That isn't possible. But that's been very, very helpful to us. And a lot of those members have got the count mark for their own area. And that's, you know, that's quite important. And I worked with, Claire. I can't always go into schools, but I can do Zooms. And I mean, it's up to Claire to say, did you,
Yes,
they were okay?
it was great. We had 2 sessions, one with Key Stage 1, years 1 and 2, and one with year 3 and 4. And the children enjoyed it. They were very informative and interesting, and I had a good response from the children. So a big thank you.
No, not at all. And then I can just add here as well, the new synagogue cannot take a whole year group. For secondary schools, this is a new Orthodox synagogue, I could probably take up to 40, but for littlies, and I don't take year ones, we can take probably up to 30. So it's not the same as it was before.
Yeah. The slight issue for some schools in Northumberland is the fact they're small schools, so they teach mixed age classes.
Well, that wouldn't, yes, I appreciate you even gonna have
So
to have
you
one, two.
yes, you have
Yes.
year 1 and 2 together.
That's okay.
Right, okay.
I mean, I've had that kind of thing as well. But you know, if it's not mixed age, then I would prefer, well, I do prefer from year 2 upwards.
Yeah. Thank you.
And also the fact that, you know, in the past we were able to take big groups, but we just can't because we've downsized. We're still on the same site. And it's still a work in progress, but I'm having a school committee coming tomorrow. So, you know, we're up and running, as it were.
Excellent. And the information, schools are regularly asking for information about where to visit, what the numbers are, that kind of thing. So one of my jobs is to collate all that information, put it on the website so that it's.
Yes, there was something about, I can only tell you about the synagogues.
Yeah.
And there's the Orthodox, to which I belong, and the Reform. And I think one of the things that we need to know is, the teachers need to know, is that we need at least 6 weeks warning.
Yeah. Well, all that information we need to put together and make sure it's available to schools to avoid the issues that I know you've had in the past.
Yeah. So am I to do it or?
I'll put the information out, but I'll give you a ring and we'll talk through exactly what that information should look like.
Good, thank you.
Kaz also attended the SACRE conference and AGM. Did anybody else? We weren't able to attend this year. There were 2 keynotes. The CEO of Cullum St Gabriel's talking about how SACRE can give voice to communities, and Charles Clark, talking about religious belief in schools and the changes with the political landscape and Brexit. And finally, finished off with Dr. David Hampshire talking about the annual report analysis, which again, the questions that he brought up were pretty straightforward. What advice should SACRE give to the LA? How does SACRE hold the LA to account for how it responds to the advice? So it was very useful. I don't think there was anything groundbreaking that came out of it, as far as Cal could tell. Network meetings have continued. There was one in December, and then we've talked about the fact that this term, rather than doing the online network meetings, we've had the syllabus drop-down days. So the next one coming up in a week or 2. There's also an online meeting about working with the Muslim units that was attended by 13 delegates. Feedback was it has been an excellent session, very useful, really useful. So I think next year we'll try and put on more and more. The tension we have at the moment is the fact that CAS is contracted for a fixed number of days per year based on the funding that we receive from the dedicated schools grant. And it's the tension between putting on the online sessions where more people can attend or sending them to schools where they can do much more detailed work. Obviously, it would be great if she could, you know, work for a small time and go to every school. So it's trying to get the balance between the online stuff where many people can attend and the actual visits to schools, which is obviously a much greater use to schools themselves. And I mentioned the understanding Christianity refresher training that we've done as well. So she has been very busy as always.
That's it. Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah, sorry.
Right, so we'll go on to item 8, pages 9 to 12, to receive and discuss the census data on England from the 2021 census.
Yeah, I'll talk to that one. So pages 9 to 12 in your pack, simply a summary that I put together based on the information that was available and the work that other people have done. It's certainly not all mine. The table at the bottom of page 9 hasn't printed. That should be a graph. Obviously, all you've got is the source for the graph. This document is available on the Northumberland Education RE pages. You know, we've talked about it before, northumberlandeducation.co.uk/SACRE. So you will be able to see the document, electronic document there. We would have talked about this in.
Would you be able to send a link for that?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
If we would have talked about this in November, obviously, because it came out much earlier in the year. So there have been changes. There is the Northumberland perspective on there. You can see the percentages as opposed to the national percentages. And I think you would expect there to be a slight difference with Northumberland, not necessarily as diverse as other counties. Changes from previous years, from the previous census, sorry, there have been a few, but there haven't been any huge changes, I don't think. Possibly the biggest changes are those putting down any other religion as their option. And there is a link to the Northumberland data itself in the pack, page 11, which I'm hoping that schools, I mean, and obviously this information has gone to schools, that they would use in their lessons to interrogate that data further. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I have one. Just wondering about the, so this was done in 21.
Yeah.
And then, what was it, 10 years ago or?
2011. Yeah.
That was the one before that. So has it changed much for you? Did you say not too much or?
Overall, when you look at the Northumberland perspective, the percentages for Northumberland are not particularly different to how they were 10 years ago. So that's why there's the comparison with the national figures.
I see.
Because they have changed a little bit more than Northumberland. Northumberland's been relatively stable over time.
So any other questions? Len?
Yeah, when it says Christian, is that people saying I am a Christian, or is that people saying I attend church?
It's people identifying with Christianity. It could be both. It could be either.
Yeah.
Can I just make a comment
Yes.
about the Jewish numbers? I suspect that those that identify as Jewish belong to the Reformed synagogue or are just culturally, but not necessarily practicing. Because one of the things, particularly the Orthodox community, is that you need to be near a synagogue. So for the Sabbath, you're not supposed to drive. So in the Orthodox community, in the Reform, you can. So does Pontyland, Pontyland is Northumberland, so you may have some, and it may just be people that identify as you've asked, that are culturally Jewish and happy to be identified as Jewish.
Right,
You've
so
got
it's-
people like David Baddiel, you know, nationally, who are not worshippers, but culturally they're Jewish.
I guess that would happen in the other religions too.
I would
Well,
think so, yeah.
so it just
Well,
really
Dave just
specify,
asked, well,
Yes, yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
And from a Buddhist perspective, we are very small in terms of percentages, but we're quite big in terms of places of worship, Buddhist centres, because we have 3 in Northumberland, and I don't think we've got a mandir, I don't think we've got a Gurdwara, so even though we're very small in numbers, there's a very strong physical Buddhist presence in Northumberland, which I think is interesting for schools. I think the data we've got here is absolutely fascinating, and one of the advantages of this set of data is that if you follow the link that you've just mentioned, Dave, you can drill down and you can actually find out what's in your road. So I've done the figures for Berwick, for example, and that is particularly interesting. And this is something that schools can do. If they want to explore religion in their own community, they can get very detailed data from the census. And I think looking to our next agreed syllabus, we've barely started this one, but 5 years go around very, very quickly in terms of RE. And we talked, Les, you raised this initially, and I think Nick is also extremely interested in providing units that are of local relevance, and for us to help schools do a statistical understanding of religion and worldviews in Northumberland with a view to developing a study unit for schools would be a really, really good thing to do. So this is a good foundation for us to do curriculum development on in the next few years.
yes, well, I've been out of school for a long time and my children, so I'm not really sure what is offered, if you like, at the moment. So that would be useful to see.
Yeah, I just want to point out, thank you, I've learned something today. I didn't realise that the Jewish community actually lived around their synagogue for obvious reasons. I've learned something today, thank you. Amazing, isn't it?
Okay, thank you. So if there's no other questions, then we'll go on to item 9, Hubs update.
Yes, that's me again. RE hubs have now been set up, and the local RE hub have been in contact with me to say that they are now in existence. With your agreement, I would like to invite them to our meeting in November so that they can present directly to you rather than hear it through me. So if you're all happy with that, then we'll make that a substantial agenda item for the November meeting. It should strengthen the work of schools. That's the idea. It will provide them with another set of resources, views, expertise. So it can't be anything but a good idea. So I think it would be helpful if they came and spoke to us directly, if you're all happy with that.
Is everyone happy with that?
Excellent. So we know that
All right.
that was agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
So who would you actually invite then from?
Karenta Passmore is the lady who's got the job of running the RE hub, so she's been in touch.
Karenta.
I've said that I will run it past you today. She's happy to attend. If you're happy for her to attend, so I'll get back to her tomorrow and tell her that it's a the date.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
In the meantime, Chair, the website is up and running, and you can look at the North East and you can see what is available, and schools can do this. All our training can go on. It's just an amazing resource for RE teachers. So I'm very sorry I shan't be here to see Corinza.
Well, it will be recorded, so you can watch it back. So our training is on there. The link to CAS is on there, so that if any schools went to that website on than ours, they would find their way back to us as well. Yeah, we're trying to make sure to work in tandem.
Is that, so that's Kaz here, is it?
Yes.
St. Caroline.
Yeah, Caroline is known as CAS.
Okay. Right, just catching on. Okay, good. So item 10, good practice in RE.
Yep, sadly Ros can't be with us. She's been detained at school, but Claire is.
There it is.
So Claire's gonna give us, well, she's gonna tell us what good practice in RE is at Mowbray.
Well, it's okay. I have printed a little thing, but schools are on a really tight budget, so I've only printed 10. Hopefully you feel it is good practice. It's just what we do at the minute. Don't want to tell anybody something that they already know, so if you are really aware of this, then feel free to tell me just to move on. Obviously a lot of what we do in school does depend on Ofsted. And Ofsted are very interested in, we call it the 3 I's at the minute, intent, implementation and impact. So obviously the intent of your curriculum. So good practice obviously has to derive from good intent of good curriculum, good leadership and support from your staff, and know what you want your children to learn, make sure the curriculum is clear, spiraling curriculum, so they build on what they already know each year, and it just gets like wider. Make sure that it's challenging, it's a range of religions and worldviews as well. And for my school, I've actually created a document. If you go a couple of pages, looks like this. Just so this kind of what RE looks like for us. So what it looks like, things that we do, and the kind of our vision for religious education in schools. I'll let a couple of quotes for the children there as well. Obviously give children the skills and tools to be able to identify, describe and explain and analyse a range of beliefs and concepts so that they can recognise, appreciate and praise the ways in which people put their beliefs into action in everyday lives within their communities and the wider world. And then hopefully the children will evaluate and reflect on that, how that helps them in their own everyday lives and what they believe in and what their life will be like. So that was just kind of like a page that I've done. If you want to find out a little bit more. The implementation is the carrying out the intent, what the curriculum will look like, how it will be delivered, and how it will be taught. And then the impact is what is the impact on the children, how they've grown spiritually, morally and culturally, what knowledge they have retained.
What were some of the meaningful tasks you actually identified there? What were some of those?
Yeah, I've got, so, don't want to skip to that. Oh, yeah, so implementation, so I've got provoke challenging questions, and so philosophical inquiries, if you just turn the page, it says funks, so these are kind of like questions that you ask children. There's not really a right or wrong answer, it just gets them thinking and discussing. At my school, we're really big on discussing and vocabulary. Obviously with COVID, a lot of children spend their time indoors in front of a TV, not discussing anything, not thinking anything. So this kind of opens up the room to discussion and what children think and believe without there actually being a right or wrong answer, just to kind of get their brains working. Kind of questions as well, like what's best, being good or being happy, kind of just discussions about that. And as long as they can justify their reasons, there's not really a right or wrong answer. As heads, children having the time and space to think, discuss, agree or disagree respectfully. So obviously children can disagree, that's their right to disagree, as long as they do it in a respectful manner, and kind of teaching them the skills to do that and the words to use. So then when they become adults in later life, they do have the skills to kind of say, actually, no, I disagree with that, but this is why, instead of just, you know, no, that's not right. Kind of learning and exploring and finding out information, by but like using resources, having a so that they can touch things and explore things and use them. and not just kind of being told the information, so they can kind of look at things and say, I wonder what this is used for. Well, it's similar to a candle in this religion, so maybe it's used the same way. Well, if it's a different religion, so it might be used in a different way. And just getting lots of discussions, making connections between them. So saying, oh, actually, my mom's got candles in her house, but she doesn't use them for that reason. She uses them for a different reason. Trying to make connections. Hands-on experience, meaningful tasks. So previously, for as RE lead at my school, you would find you would go into an RE lesson in year 1. You'd go into an RE lesson in year 6, they would both be labelling a church or a synagogue, or they would be retelling the Christmas story. So kind of there's no progression there, there's no learning, they're just doing it just for the sake of doing a task. So making sure the tasks are actually meaningful for the children. Finding out how people live and why they live like that and how it impacts in the community, making connections with their own lives and thinking about how they would contribute to society and their community. Cooperative learning, so there's some ideas here, which is like think, pair, share. I don't know if you've seen these before. They're just different ways of having discussions. So instead of just the teacher asking a question in the class and somebody putting their hand up and answering, it's the whole classes involved in discussion with each other. And the children quite like these because they've got different funny names, and they get to talk to people maybe who they don't normally talk to. You can group the children if you like in different ways, but there's lots of examples there, which are kind of really interesting, and you can use that in any religion, and the children get used to it as well. So if you say like, right, we're going to do a think, pair, share, and you just know, right, I'm going to spend a minute thinking by myself, then I'm going to talk to my partner, then we're going to share it in a little group, and kind of it helps the children who are less able to speak in groups, or their vocabulary is not as good because they talk to partner and they gain knowledge there, and then they get a little bit more confident when they speak in groups as well.
Can I just interrupt you there? You were talking about vocabulary, and perhaps I'm being pedantic.
No, that's fine.
But right on the very first page, the years we tried said we learn about Muslims. They pray in a special church called a mosque. And I would say that they need to know that it's a building, not a church.
Yeah.
I'm possibly being pedantic.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was just what year 3 trying to say.
Because I think this is one of the difficulties is using, and I encourage it, the correct words for particular things. And although some children will find it difficult, I think children like new words and new vocabulary.
Yeah, you know, you're right. Yeah, it's just depending on the child.
Yeah.
Some children just trying to make links, especially children with special educational needs. Sometimes it's really hard, and sometimes you have to choose which vocabulary you
I mean, I find that when I talk to the kids
it's hard.
It's the same in Christianity as well. You know, you talk about the church, it's a building. The church is more than that.
Yeah, no, that's right. Especially now, I mean, we don't have many children who follow a faith in our school. At all. So some of them don't even hear about any religion until they come to school.
Yeah,
I understand.
yes.
No, but thank you, that is a good.
Have we got as far
Right,
as
is there any other questions?
Sorry, I
Would
was
you like to ask a question?
Well, just a comment. Have we got as far as the Hannah here? Or am I jumping ahead?
I think jumping ahead, but we can jump ahead.
Did you just want to finish with that? We can have questions after.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was just different ways of getting children to do their work.
Can I finish this?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Unless there's any questions.
Have you finished now?
If you want, yeah. I can be.
You can, well, no.
No, it's just if people want to have a look and just ask questions.
All right, yes, that's been.
Thank you, a couple of comments. Thank you very much for your report. What was startling, you made comments about isolation, the sitting watching television programs, whatever. That's isolation, isn't it? That's good in one sense, you can relax in isolation, but you alluded, and quite rightly, that they don't have conversation at all. There is no discussions, there is, it's about home life, isn't it? So they can be distracted from conversations and building on from that. And you could talk about morals, you could talk about ways of living and so on, and obviously religions coming out of that. Strangely enough, I had a very similar conversation with my grandson yesterday, with his attitude, and I didn't like it, so I just basically told him he was a bully, and I had to explain to him what a bully was, because he didn't understand the word. And then I'm starting to realise that, well, actually, I'm not really helping him. I've got to spend more time with him to explain in more detail about what his attitude, his way of thinking, and what you put in your pack is fantastic. Because actually, if he gets older and understands about various religions around the world, then he would come to be a more sympathetic person, and he would obviously welcome them and wouldn't be aggressive towards them. And so a lot of the things you said in what you've talked about is, although they are young children, but my grandson's only 5, but you see, I'm starting to see the parallel of why RE is so important in school, even to a 5-year-old. And I want to just thank you for that. It was amazing.
Any other questions?
Yes.
I've got a question about the first child's comment, where he says, at first I didn't believe in God, but now I'm not sure, because how was everything perfectly made by people, animals and the planet? So some people think that people and animals were made by evolution. So I'm just wondering, at what stage do you start teaching about evolution?
There's in the RE syllabus, there is it was the unit, what's it called? Science and religion, conflict, or, but it was if they're conflicted or if they support each other in some way, and I think that's where it's from. Evolution, you don't teach until year 6. At the same time, so they'll be learning it kind of alongside each other. Yeah,
it's nice to think that kids are taught 2 sides of the coin, but it's nice to think they're talking at the same time rather than one person 1 year later. Sounds like they are.
Yeah, they are, and then it's
great.
up to them. They can decide. So I think this child's probably heard both sides, but then well, actually, I'm not really sure.
Great, thanks.
It's quite nice.
Yes, please. One of the things I really love about this is the focus on oracy and children thinking and reflecting and the active learning, which is so much better than children sitting and being talked at. Can I ask about the implementation of the syllabus? Is what you're presenting to us here now congruent with the new syllabus?
Yeah.
Has it been difficult for you as a teacher? Have you been able to implement all of it, or are you doing it on a rolling program? How's it happening?
At my school, the RE was, depending on which teacher it was and which year group, it was very different. So when we got the new syllabus, it said year 3 needs to be taught about Judaism, but they hadn't, and they were building on what they'd already done in year 1, year 2. The foundations weren't there. So what's been difficult is I've made like a 3-year program. So the year 3s have had to go back a few steps to get the foundations in. So it's just working through that. And I know that some schools haven't done that. They've just started, right, year 3 need to be learning this now. let's teach them this, but the foundations aren't there, so they're missing steps out. So I think it just is gonna take schools a little while to get into the swing of things. But there are people out there to help. I've had some network meetings with some schools close by in Budford there, which has been good. I think it will just take some schools a little bit longer.
I completely agree. We'll be in a lot better position in 5 years' time. When the next iteration of syllabus is available, because those at the younger end should have much further building blocks to understand than some of them do now. And I mean, that's the case whenever you bring in something here, to be honest. But I think we will really reap the benefits of this syllabus when we start teaching the next syllabus. It should be an awful lot more easier process. But it is very difficult in school because, exactly as Claire said, there will be things you've been asked to teach where there is no foundation to build it upon. And that's often the case in other subjects as well, but I think in this case it's more difficult if you have no point of reference whatsoever. And I'm sure I've told you the story before, and we took students in a school I worked in probably 20 years ago now, to the local mosque. But of course, what I hadn't really considered, which was that looking back, is the fact they didn't have any reference points. Most of them had never been to a church. So I had no idea of what a religious building might be. There was no way of comparing. But, you know, you've got to start somewhere. And I think some of the activity in there are lovely, Claire. The fact that there's an awful lot of discussion, time to think, reflect, values is exactly the kind of thing that I think we would like to see.
In one point, with Christian, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, A, thank you, and B, how helpful that summative last page is.
Yeah, really
I
good.
think just that idea of that open-ended questions and that engagement with there, I think it's really powerful. And one of the challenges I've picked up from schools is the staff and their developing their questions about the theological aspects of things like understanding Christianity. So I've had a few schools contact me and say, could you come in and just sit down with us there? And maybe that's part of the resource of this group here that people could maybe, but it's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering just about how do you integrate the religious community around yourself within the school? I mean, do you visit church? Do you go to church? Because just the ideas I had when I was teaching like the lower ages is that for every Easter, for every Christmas, we went to church and had a service in the church, run by the priest, and then obviously the children read passages from the story, and we did a different nativity story every year. I was just wondering if you've thought about doing something.
Well, different schools do different things.
Yeah.
The issue we've had and most schools have this year has been the price of buses. That's just gone through the roof. And actually our school, we've just got 2 minibuses because the price is cheaper than just taking some children, so busy. I'm actually, I've just had my medical to drive a minibus, then I'm going to go for some lessons and do a test. So hopefully now that we have the minibus, we can go on more trips and things.
But have you got a church that's local to the school that you could?
We have
within walking distance?
We have a church within walking distance. We have tried to get in touch with the person there, but it has not been received well. I'm not sure they like children. So that's really tough.
There is that conflation sometimes between worship and actually going for a service in RE. RE is that academic subject, and so to go into the church, the group of children was maybe looking at the elements within a church there rather than actually going for a service, which may be a denominational a faith school maybe might do. But the buses there, they're just horrific.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I just followed on about transport. Can we see what we can do through the council where we can have our own transport system? Where we own the buses, minibuses, whatever, and lend them out to the schools? Because if it's an issue where children aren't getting out to religious places or any other activities, then we've got a problem. And I think we're big enough here as an organisation to source our own and help our children.
I'm not sure that well, that's sort of transport department, isn't it? So,
It would be wonderful.
Yeah,
yeah.
can put that suggestion forward, because
You
to me-
can, as a councillor.
You can,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Absolutely.
To me, it's a hindrance, and we don't want to put hindrances in the way.
Mhm.
Why should a child be deprived of a visit because of the cost? But it's not about money, it's about the availability
Yeah.
of the transport.
Well, it would
That's
be
what-
wonderful, Les, to have transport for everyone, you know, but it's a cost, isn't it? I
Yeah.
know that we have transport, you know, for disabilities, which we pay a huge amount for, for people that really can't get there, and, you know, really need that. Obviously, it would be great to house all, you know, transport all of children for all different things, but it's just the cost involved. Does the council
Yeah,
have that?
but if we had a half a dozen minibuses, for example, why not? And for the whole county and lend them out when the schools need them. We could do that, surely. We're not that impoverished. are we?
Probably drivers as well.
Well, you could ask that question at council, a question for council.
And there are 165 schools, so we might need more than a handful.
We would,
Make one way.
we would,
We might need a bit
absolutely.
164 because we've got one.
Well, they.
Could I just make a
Yes.
comment? Just the other way around it is what I said before, doing Zoom type sessions. It's not as good as the actual encounter, but it's better than doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is what I'm finding, that it's the cost of the buses or the lack of availability, because I think everybody's rushing to get a bus to try and do an outside visit before the end of the academic year, because you haven't had any for 3 years.
Right, okay, well, I have a couple of questions. I hope you'll be patient with me because, you know, I'm probably a bit out of my depth here. But I just wondered, thank you very much for this, it's very good. I just wondered, are these the religions that are taught in school now, in front page?
Yeah.
That's all of them.
Spencer Laundry used to refer to them as the sexy six. So it's the Hinduism, Sikhism, Christianity, Buddhism, Muslim, and Judaism.
Okay, so these are the, so I don't know, for instance, I don't know what that one is, the blue one. I don't know if you would, it'd be useful to put the names sort of under each. What is the blue one?
It might be Taoism, but I'm not absolutely sure.
Taoism. Is that taught in our school?
No,
No,
not usually.
it's not.
No,
I just wondered if
different
these are the,
religions are taught in different year groups. So, in Key Stage 1, they do Christianity, Judaism, Islam. And then in Key Stage 2, they do the same,
right,
Hinduism is included. And then in the high school, they do Sikhism and Buddhism.
do they do Buddhism?
Yeah, they do in there.
Because I was looking on the census here for all of them, because, yeah, because Buddhism is about the same as some of the others at 0.2%, or national 0.5%. So I was just wondering, because I didn't see that, is that in here somewhere? But, so I'm just wondering if, what happens in school if somebody was to say, oh, I'm this religion, can we teach it? Would it be agreed to do that?
Depending on the school, I mean, at our school, we would say yes.
Okay.
And we would teach it to the whole class and say, introduce it, saying, this is what it's trying. And their family believe we want to learn about it, so we can better understand, maybe because
celebrate festivals, things like that, might celebrate with them as well. Yeah, we would do that. I'm not sure all schools would.
Pardon?
I'm not sure all schools would.
No, I just wondered what
Yeah.
sort of the criteria was, because somebody could, because I'm sure there's quite a lot of different religions, that aren't being taught, so I just didn't know whether, what anyone has.
Actually, what the title is now is religion and worldviews, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that there's, Stuart Dearlove's not here. There's a push for humanism to be taught as well as a worldview.
Yeah, we do teach about it. We teach higher up the school.
Right, okay, so that's sort of, I just didn't know what the, if you like, because I don't know how all other countries work in the world, whether they do the same or different, it just depends on the different. You know, I just wasn't sure, you have to forgive me, I'm not,
I think it's become common practice in Britain for the 6 main religions to be taught. And you're right to point out what I failed to notice, that there isn't a Buddhist symbol on the front of the here. No, that's fine. I think that is generally the yin yang is possibly Taoism, but I'm not absolutely sure about that. It became common practice. The law doesn't say which religions have to be taught, and the agreed syllabus normally does the 6 major religions, or has done until relatively recently. But now, like Northumberland, there's a much stronger emphasis on including humanism and secular perspectives. But the agreed syllabus in law, I think, is probably the minimum of what should be taught. If schools choose to do extra things, say when you have a child from a different community move in, there's no reason why you shouldn't do that. So the agreed syllabus should set a high minimum standard, and if schools do beyond and above that, that's fine.
I think it actually might say that in the agreed syllabus, this is the minimum.
It's a bit like the national curriculum, that's the expectation.
yeah,
The hope is that everybody will teach above that. Academies don't have to follow the Northumberland agreed syllabus,
okay,
so they can,
yeah, because they're not under our jurisdiction, if you like.
so they can
just have,
choose to do,
yeah,
I mean,
okay.
some do, and that's absolutely fine with, but they would be within their rights to do it completely differently should they wish to.
Okay, so it's up to the head teacher.
Or the CEO, depending on that one, actually,
Or the governors.
or the business.
Okay, all right. Good, well, thank you very much for that.
Thanks,
Interesting.
Thank you. There was a resource called Virtual Visits, which if you look up, they have worksheets and resources. You buy the DVD and you get like a pack, and it might have fitted online now, but you have conversations with religious leaders from different religions. It talks to families. You get videos, and you can get like a 3D show around of a religious building that you can watch. So that was a really good resource I used to use.
Okay, so would you bring a presentation back again, or what?
I'm hoping that Ros was due to be here today, and say, school have asked her to stay at school today, so I'm hoping that Ros will give us further perspective.
I spoke to her today, she said she was happy to do it. So.
Right. So yes, we'll do something similar next time from
Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda.
Yep, absolutely.
Good. All right, so the next is the SACRE self-evaluation tool.
Yeah, this is pages 19 to 48 in your pack. Something that's come from the SACRE, and something that I think would be a good idea if we were to undertake a bit of self-assessment. We're at that point now where in September, all the schools that it's relevant to should be teaching the agreed syllabus. Our membership has developed and grown. I think it's probably a good point in our development to look back and see where we think we are and where we need to go in the future. It would obviously help inform the action plan going forward. The question is, what do you think would be the best way to approach it? if we could have a view on how we would do this. Is it worth, a group getting together to try and do it on behalf of the committee?
Have we done this before?
No.
We haven't. Okay, so anyone with any suggestions?
One comment to get us started. And then I went through and like tried to score it, but I found it quite hard to do through lack of understanding and lack of knowledge.
Hence the need for a group approach, I think, because I think it is quite difficult to play ball.
Yeah.
And, you know, as an officer, I've got a particular view. I think if the fact that you have a group of you, means you moderate each other's judgments as well, so.
If we need you in our group.
That's absolutely fine, yeah, I'm happy to do that, of course.
What's your advice?
My advice is to ask the committee. I'm an officer, I don't have a view, of course, in situations.
Okay,
I'd be happy to join the group.
is it coming to join, how many would you like, how many do you think of the group, do you think?
Can I make another suggestion?
Yes?
There is a huge amount in this,
Mhm.
and I think we're going to do it quickly. And focus on what's really urgent for Northumberland. We might want to prioritise some sections rather than the whole document. So I think sections 1 and 2 are probably the most important areas for us to be looking at. So one is about SACRE and the local authority, and obviously our little group and look at this in relation to the work we're going to do on the constitution. And since we have got our own syllabus, standards and provision in RE also seems to me to be really important. And I don't want to suggest that something like the provision isn't important, it is, but this seems to me where our energies have been focused recently, and perhaps it's time to evaluate where we're at. And don't we discuss your plans, Dave?
I have no plans, the plan was to ask you what the plan should be.
Well, if we're going to do the constitution, best to do that first. Would you think? Or,
Thinking on my feet here.
because,
I think we could. No, I think the first section is much bigger than what we'd envisaged for our little group and the constitution.
Which page are you on that, Joyce? Which page are you looking at?
Big page 21. Sorry, big page 22.
Right.
Right, each document's got different numbers in the bottom as well, so. So the management of SACRE in partnership with the local authority.
Right.
I think some of what we do in our little group might be covering this area, but there is so much in here that it might be beyond that first remit of the little group on constitution. Like relationship with the academy sector isn't something that would naturally in a conversation like the constitutional document.
It may be that we feel that now is not the time to do it. We don't, you know, there's no compulsion to do this. If we think it's going to be useful and helpful, well, then we ought to.
Yeah,
so if
I
we,
think it should be done, yes.
if we do the constitution first and then work on this afterwards, what do you think?
Perhaps we could.
And section, I mean, it would be sensible, section 3, it would be a bit mad to do section 3 now, as it's to do with the effectiveness of the local group activities. Which obviously, we will know that over the next academic year rather than earlier, so. Maybe we ought to do keep section 2 a go as a starter and see how we feel as well.
Yeah.
It's if we do every meeting, but this would just give us a focus.
Yes.
How does everyone feel about that?
Sounds like a good plan.
Does that sound all right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so do section 2.
So we will look at section 2 between now and the next meeting with a view to reporting back on how it's gone in November.
And who wants to do that? Is that gonna be?
I'll certainly be involved. I'm happy to lead it. Happy to help committee and happy to.
Anyone else would like to? I don't mind helping. Would you help on that, please? So it's 3
And Kaz, presumably.
Kaz.
Would that be appropriate to have both of you doing everything?
It's up to you. You are the committee, Kaz and I are officers, so our relationship is slightly different.
I would join you, but therefore it's probably want somebody else who's not actually in the school.
Yeah.
All right, well, you've got 3.
Yep.
Maybe Kaz if. And then if anyone else wants to.
Well, we'll give it a go. We'll report back and we can.
Yeah, well, there's some
some.
members missing today, isn't there? Who might, want to, so you could ask them a question if they'd like to.
Dave, I'm just wondering from the union perspective, because we have obviously an increased number of reps at the moment due to the financial crisis that teachers are going through. We can contact reps within schools to help you to gain access to people to get information from schools that are, that aren't cooperative.
Yeah.
But they do have a rep in school and the RE will be getting taught.
Yeah, well,
So if there's any way we could send out a blanket email to all reps to, if you draft something that you would require to know.
Brilliant.
And we can get that sent out via the union website, well, via the union messaging service.
Thank you.
To reps.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So we move on to item. Which is the draft. See handbook, which was in the last minute. And this is here.
This one. Joyce, what's your knowledge of this?
I've been involved in it.
Right, okay, I'll just give it a call. We were going to bring this to the meeting in February. It says in the agenda that this will be a substantive agenda item for the autumn meeting. I think the autumn meeting is already looking fairly busy. But if we need to move things, well, let me say there should be an autumn. So later in the year, or this to later in the year, this is entirely up to you to decide upon. This has been written by Stephen Pett, or partly by Stephen Pett. Stephen Pett, you may remember, was the gentleman who launched the agreed syllabus back in July 2022. And the idea is to take the religion and worldviews approach and see how it really fits in with the syllabus. So it's a piece of research. It's as much a think piece as anything else. And Kaz in particular feels it would be a good idea for us to read it, understand it, and see how we think it might fit in with Northumberland or what benefit it might have. Now, as I say, the agenda for the autumn is looking pretty busy already. So I wonder if we could ask committee members to read it, form a view with it being a substantive item agenda in the spring term. So that could inform our thinking, planning through the summer and into the following academic year, when of course all schools will be well into the agreed syllabus by then. I think I don't think we'll do it justice. I mean, there's a lot of it.
You
couldn't do it just.
And to give it short shrift in November would seem not fair on the document and not fair on your time.
I started, I've read about half of it, but then it's heavy, very heavy going.
Okay.
It's very academic.
Difficult to digest, you need some time to
Yeah.
actually consider many of the items in here, you do really.
So if I give you till,
I think you're right, Dave.
if I give you till February, then will that?
24, 25.
Of course.
It's a consultation document, and I think it's also to be in some.
Well, it says it's not, it says explicitly in the form, this is a project, not a consultation.
Do they want responses?
They want responses.
By 2024. So we'll be discussing it in 2024, which is still early 2024. Because I think they would like a critical response, not just how we can use it, but whether this is the best response nationally. And this is a consequence, this document is a direct consequence of the recommendations of the Commission on Religious Education, which said that RE should become known as religion and worldviews.
Religion and,
Worldviews.
okay,
And this has taken some of the ideas of the Commission and taken some of them forward. And I was a member of the Commission, and I'm sorry that some major ideas of the Commission report have been omitted from this document. So I think I may respond personally as well. I think it's a very important document for the future of religious education, and it would be, or religion and worldviews, it would be a very good thing for us to be able to make a response to it, and to use it for our own future planning.
So if we agree to have it as a substantive agenda item in the spring term meeting, which we will give our views so that we can collate a response to go shortly after that. Would that be okay? Right,
is that right?
thank
Is
you.
that okay with everyone?
So that's a very big piece of homework for you all before. How you teachers will find this out. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I have a copy, please? Sabrina?
Well, you have one, you should have got one,
It should be.
you should have had one in your pack,
No.
didn't they, wasn't it mailed to you?
I've got it.
Okay,
Thank you, George.
well, the dog must have got it. Okay, so now we have, item 13, the Northumberland SACRE action plan.
Yep, does everybody have a copy?
It wasn't the only that I found
Yeah.
it out. Can you make that a wonderful?
So it says from September 22 to August
Thank you.
2023.
Good night.
So is that,
So there's a number of things that we feel that we've achieved. There are others that are still orange that we either continue to work on or work on. If we just quickly go through the ones that are orange. 4 is the list of the CPD events. And the reason for doing that was A, to keep an eye on attendance, B, to ensure there was a spread of experience, and C, we could put it into the annual report. Rebecca was keeping a list of who's attended what, so if I can just ask that if anybody has attended any RE-based CPD recently, that they let Rebecca know so that we can ensure that what's in the annual report is up to date.
this has a question, where would you find out these events then?
The events are either circulated by Rebecca via email when opportunities arise, or they're often mentioned in the SACRE newsletter, which we'll get to.
Thank you.
Which again gets circulated to.
Dave, and Chair, I think this would be very useful when we're doing the evaluation. Because there are similar,
Yes, and I think what the plan will be that the evaluation will inform the action plan. Yeah, in a sense, I've written this based on my view of how we're doing.
yeah,
That's the point of doing the action plan, is to get a wider view to inform the plan. Rebecca, how have we got on with the NAHT breath? Are they responding?
I'll keep trying.
Which item was that?
Number 5, so we are expected to have a rep from NAHT or ASCL.
Right.
And could you tell me what they are?
National Association of Head Teachers
Okay,
and the Association of School and College Leaders, so 2 trade unions who predominantly represent head teachers in schools. Right, well, we'll just have to continue working on that one.
it'd be useful actually to give it a glossary on, because that's what I know, and maybe everyone knows except for me.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Number 6 was to support the rollout of the new agreed syllabus, and we have done that. It said an event will take place. We've done 2 or 3, so I think we could probably turn that one green, although that will continue across 23, 24, of course. 7 was to create a list of volunteers and topics, those people who would be available to visit classrooms or do Zoom sessions, etc. We haven't done that, but we absolutely needed to do that because that's the kind of thing that schools are really asking for. So I will ask Kaz, it's got Kaz or consultant next to it, so that is Kaz. I'll ask Kaz if she can do that between now and September, so that we can turn that one green, and that will be very useful for schools. 8 was SACRE members where appropriate should offer Q&A sessions online. Again, it was to create a list of people. I think that's more for teachers to ask questions on.
Like
So
workshops.
it's the ability to think, oh, I've got a question about Judaism, who do I ask? And having the ability to know where to go. So again, we will do our best to do that. Deanna, that actually has your name next to it.
Which one?
Yeah, no?
8.
Great.
I think just a willingness to.
I'm willing, right, okay, well, I'll ask,
to
Kaz
do
and
a
I can
Q&A
work this as
session,
well.
Um,
That's no problem.
with teachers.
9's been and gone. 10, we will continue to do, we'll try to do it this year, we'll continue to do it again next year. 11 was talking again about collecting data. I think probably the best thing to do is bring that up in the meeting with the Director of Children's Services. The September visits to schools will contain that sentence, is the new agreed syllabus implemented from September 2023. We felt that if we put the question in now, schools could just say, yes, of course. There's a difference between saying it's going to be and actually it's being implemented. So the question in the summer term school improvement reports, it's not in the summer term, it will be in the autumn term, absolutely. 12, we've discussed that will go ahead before the end of the academic year. Workforce data and exam results we said we'll do in November, as will the Ofsted reports. Just as a brief aside to that, we've had, I think it's 3 RE deep dives this year out of 47 inspections. So it's certainly not commonplace. And it's unlikely to become more commonplace, I think. And finally, 15 is exactly what Joyce has discussed. So I think we're on to, or well on top of most things on the action plan so far.
Is there anyone, is everyone happy with that, or is there anyone else that would like to add anything? I'm gonna do something after August 23.
Yes, well, over the summer, it will be rewritten, updated, there'll be a version for next year.
The action group, or the little book that did the action plan initially, we set out a 2-year program. So this action plan is based on the first year's program.
Also,
There is an outline in the second year's program that we've already worked on.
all right, can I have a copy of that? Maybe second. Thank you. All right, so that's good, thank you for that.
And it's good to see the actions and outcomes on in the action plan. For so
Yeah.
many years, we had a series of plans and objectives without any action or outcomes indicated. So it's a good move forward. At least we know where we are now and where we're going.
Mhm. Might be useful to put down the percentage of how far we are, I suppose. Okay.
We could, I think that would be a bit of it'd be my view as to how far we are.
Okay. All right, so you said on some of these, some are almost going green because they're almost done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the view would be if they're not green, then even if they're very close, they're not.
Orange. Okay, so 14 is the Northumberland SACRE newsletter and resources website.
Yeah, just a reminder of where it is. There's actually a spelling mistake in the web link. As Northumberland is missing the B.
Oh, yes.
You would.
Sorry.
You would know.
Oh, we didn't know that.
So on that page, that will take you to, that links to all the information about SACRE. It links to the SACRE newsletter, and it links to a collection of resources that Kaz and I have put together. So A, it's a place where you can go if you need to find information. B, it's really designed for schools to help them find information more quickly. Thank you to those of you who send me information to put on the newsletter. It does go on there. But I do appreciate it does make life easier when it gets sent from the experts to me rather than me scrubbing around trying to find things. So I do appreciate it.
Okay, good. There's the training available.
Yes, just a reminder that the SACRE run plenty of training. We buy into all of their CPD each year, so to make it available to you for free. When the next year's list comes out, we'll obviously send it to you. But as I said before, if you have undertaken any training, you can just let Rebecca know, please, so that we can ensure that the annual report is going to be as up to date as possible.
I could probably do with some.
Yes, well, when we get the list for this year, and it's all available.
I think it's available. They do specific training sessions for chairs.
The chairs, yeah.
And the clerks of SACRE.
Right.
So,
Did you do this, Claire?
Yes, okay, well, I'd like to do the,
so
Are they recorded? Right, can you look at that? I'd like to know, Rebecca, thank you.
was the club one worthwhile for you, Rebecca?
It was a bit different, so it was mainly for what would they be doing. It wasn't really for what my role would be.
What I would be doing.
Yeah.
Right.
it's a lot about me.
Right, you've got to send me the link to that one.
all right, good. So then we have, item 16. SACRE.
Yeah, and the SACRE newsletter, it's in your pack.
Oh, yes, yeah. Right.
I don't think there was anything.
Oh, no.
It was conference specific, this one.
Okay, did you go to this?
I didn't know, but Kaz did.
Kaz did.
Yeah.
Is it just for officers or what?
No, we do open it up to all members if they would wish to.
Okay,
Chair, I think when you're registered as chair,
yes.
you probably will get an email copy, because I do,
Oh,
of the,
Yeah.
of the national newsletter.
okay, that's good. So that was just in May.
Yes, I don't think there's anything specific in that particular briefing that we need to
Okay,
bring to your attention this time.
all right, so. Well, good, an education, religion and world views in the next 30 years is part of the programme. That's lovely. We talk about the religion and world. You probably know some of these people, do you? On the- You probably know some of their names. All right. So then the item 17. Date of next meeting, the 8th of November. And that will be held, do we know which room, this room?
Hopefully this room.
This room, yes.
Yeah.
County, okay. Do we hold the meetings here?
We tried various venues at different times, but we are aiming to be in this room every time.
It's a nice room.
It's good for everyone, does it?
No.
Travel far, or
No, I'm 5 minutes up the road. It's
5 minutes up the road? Well, I'm up at Berwick, but how are you? Righto, good. Okay, any urgent business? I don't see any. Right, well, thank you very much.